Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. It's almost the weekend. I hope you all are doing well. Um, Really quick, I want to share a little bit something about what we kind of been talking about the last video that we had. And but first of all, I want to share real quick about one of my favorite comic book teams, I guess you could say. And they are called the Green Lanterns. And one of the reasons why they are my favorite teams is because they have like this code of ethic, or this mantra that they say. And this is how it goes. They say, in brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. I'm Pastor Manny, and this is a ministry that we have here called English Oaks, at English Oaks. It's called Looking Up, and Pastor Bob and I, Sunday through Friday, share an encouraging thought for the day in the morning. And just kind of going back to my favorite comic book, one of my favorite comic book teams, and the Green Lanterns, and this mantra, this code of ethic, I guess, as you could say, is to me is just so powerful. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of Jesus, and how when Jesus stepped onto the scene and he began his ministry, right, as we talked about in the last video, his announcement was the kingdom is near, or the kingdom is at hand, right? And people were naturally asking, okay, how do I qualify to be in God's kingdom? Well, in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus begins to share the Beatitudes, what we know, or what are called the Beatitudes, right? And just going back to the Green Lanterns, people would ask, how do I qualify to be a Green Lantern? Well, the one qualification that you must have is will, a willpower, right? And the ring is pretty cool, because the ring would choose the person to wield its power, because they had such strong will, right? And I guess you could say, in a way, God went a qualification to be in God's kingdom. A qualification to be in God's kingdom is to have these attributes of the Beatitude, and further on in the Sermon of the Mount. And so we are going to get into the other half of the Beatitudes. And these verses can be understood in four ways. And one is, they are a code of ethics and a standard of conduct for all believers. And two, they contrast kingdom values, what is eternal, with worldly values, what is temporary. And number three is, they contrast the superficial faith of the Pharisees with the real faith that Jesus demands. And four is, they show how Old Testament expectations will be fulfilled in the new kingdom. And the Beatitudes aren't multiple choice, right? As if you could pick one and leave the others out, right? But they must be taken as a whole. And then Jesus perfectly exemplified them when he was here on earth, and we must aim to live as he did. And so just kind of going off of that, I'm going to finish reading the rest of the Beatitudes. I left off on blessed are the meek, or the humble, for they will inherit the whole earth, right? And then verse 6, it says, God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied, right? And not our justice, right? Our justice is like, I want to retaliate, I want to do harm. But the justice that God desires is all throughout Scripture. And I really want to challenge us, but maybe that's something you could study on your own, is look up God's justice and what that looks like. And so verse 7, it says, God blesses those who are merciful, for they shall be shown mercy, right? And if I want mercy, then I must give mercy, because God has been merciful to me. God has been merciful to us, right? Because while we were yet his enemies still, Christ died for us. And that's mercy at its greatest extent. And so verse 8 says, God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God, right? God desires pure hearts. And when we have pure hearts, we can see him for who he is, and we know him for who he is. And verse 9 says, God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called children of God. And now more than ever, that's something that we really need to strive for, is to work for peace, and they will be called children of God. Verse 10 said, God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And then just finishing off with verses 11 and 12. So God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. So just going back to what we're talking about earlier, this is a code of ethics that God, this is a standard that God has for his followers. And if we truly want to be his followers, we must live like this. We must aim to live like this as much as possible. And for me, when I look at all this, it's really hard and it seems impossible, right? But with God, all things are possible. So this is something I really have to pray about. This is something I really have to ask God to change my heart within me to help me to live this way, because naturally I don't want to, right? Naturally, I want my kingdom. I want to live for myself. I want my own kingdom to be lived out each and every day, right? And but it's not about my kingdom, it's about God's kingdom, right? And then just to remember, a reminder that everything here that we have in this world is temporary. You know, the money that we have, the cars, the houses, our politics, right? Our nations, you know, they're all temporary. Only God's kingdom is eternal, and that's what we should truly be living for each and every day, is for God's kingdom. All right, and when we truly live for God's kingdom, everything else is a blessed around us, right? So as just something I want to encourage us today with, and I hope this is a blessing for you. And it's been a blessing to me reading this and just like sharing this. So have a great weekend, have a great Sabbath. All right, God bless, take care, and yes, and have a good day.